So for English, we have to read 2 books and connect them. And before that, we have to write a summary for each book. So my book is called Autumn of the Patriarch by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I don't know if anyone who's going to see this video has ever read this, but I know some of my friends are probably going to see this, like 2 of you guys. I just want to show you guys how long these sentences are, because it's like 8 pages to a sentence. So I will just read a sentence for you as soon as I find a period. Hold on. Okay. They did not spread the news immediately, that time either, contrary to what he expected, but many prudent hours passed with the clandestine investigations, secret agreements among the heirs of the regime, who were trying to gain time by denying the rumor of death, with all manner of contrary versions. They brought his mother, Bendición Alvarado, out to the commercial district to show that she was not wearing a mourning face. They dressed me in a flower dress, like a chippy, sir. They made me buy a macaw feather hat so that everybody would see me happy. They made me buy every piece of junk to be found in the stores, despite of my telling them, no, sir, it wasn't time for buying, but for crying, because I believed it was really my son who had died. And they forced me to smile when people took full-length pictures of me, because the military men had said it had to be done, for the good of the palace, not the palace, for the good of the country, while he wondered, confusing in his hiding place, what's happening out in the world, since nothing had changed with the trick of his death. How it was that the sun had risen and risen again without stumbling. Why, that Sunday look, mother! Why, that same heat without me! He was wondering in surprise when a cannon shot sounded from the fortress of the harbor, and the main bells of the cathedral began to toll all the way up to the government house. Came the surge of crowds that were rising. The surge of crowds that were rising up out of the age-old morass with the greatest piece of news in the world. And then he half opened the bedroom door and peeped into the audience room, and saw himself laid out more dead and more decorated than all the dead popes of Christendom, wounded by the horror and the shame of his own body, a military stud lying among flowers. His face pale with powder, his lips painted, the hard hands of a dauntless young lady crossed over the chest, armored with military decorations, the showy dress uniform with the 10 pips of General of the Universe, a rank someone had invented for him after death. The King of Spades saber he never used, the patent leather boots with the 2 golden spurs, the vast paraphernalia of power, and the lugubrious martial glories, reduced to his human size, of a explicitive lying in state. Explicitive, that can't be me, he said to himself in a fury. It's not right, explicitive, he said to himself, contemplating the procession that was parading around his corpse. And for an instant he forgot the murky reasons for the farce or farce, and he felt raped and diminished by the inclemency of death toward the majesty of power. He saw life without him. He saw a certain compassion, how men were bereft of his authority. He saw with a hidden uneasiness those who had only come to decipher the enigma of whether it was really or was not he. He saw a very old man who gave the Masonic salute from the days of the Federalist War. He saw a man in mourning who kissed his ring. He saw a schoolgirl who laid a flower on him. He saw a fishwife who could not resist the truth of his death, and strewed her basket of fresh fish all over the floor, and embraced the perfumed corpse, sobbing aloud that it was him. My God, what's going to become of us without him? She wept. So it was him, they shouted. It was him, shouted the throng, suffocated by the sun in the main square. And the bells of the cathedral stopped tolling at their knell, and those of all the churches announced the Wednesday of jubilation. Easter rockets exploded, Roman candles, drums of liberation, and he watched the assault groups that came in through the windows in the face of the silent complacency of the guard. He watched the ferocious leaders who dispersed the procession with clubs and knocked down the inconsolable fishwife. He watched the ones who attacked the corpse, the 8 men who took it out of its immemorial state and its chimerical time of agapanthus lilies and sunflowers, and dragged it down the stairs, those who gutted the insides of that paradise of opulence and misfortune, thinking they were destroying the lair of power forever, knocking over the papier-mâché Doric capitals, velvet curtains, Babylonic columns crowned with alabaster palm trees, throwing birdcages out the window, the throne of viceroys, the grand piano, breaking the funeral urns with the ashes of unknown patriots and goblin tapestries of maidens asleep in gondolas of disillusion and enormous oil paintings of bishops and archaic military men in inconceivable naval battles, annihilating the world so that in the memory of the future generations not the slightest memory of a cursed line of men of arms would remain. And then he peeped into the street through the slats of the blinds to see, by slats I think he means slits, through the slats of the blinds to see what degree the ravages of defenestration had reached, and with just one glance he saw more infamy and more ingratitude than had ever been seen, and wept over by my eyes since the day I was born, mother. He saw his merry widows leaving the building, turn page, through the service entrance, leading the cows from the stables by the halter, carrying off government furniture, the jars of honey from your hives, mother. He saw his 7-month runs making music of jubilation with kitchen pots and treasures from the crystal set, and the table service for pontifical banquets, singing with street urchin shouts, "My papa is dead! Hooray for freedom!" He saw the bonfire that had been lighted on the main square to burn the official portraits and the almanac lithographs that had been all in its place, that had been in all places and at all times ever since the beginning of, oh my god, jeez, where am I? Oh my gosh. Since the beginning of his regime, and he saw his own body dragged by as it left behind along the street a trail of medals and opulets, dolman buttons, strands of brocade and frog embroidery, and tassels from playing card sabers, and the 10 sad pips of the kings of the universe. "Mother, look what they've done to me," he said, feeling his own flesh in the indignity of the spitting and the sick bed pans that were thrown on him from the balconies as he went by, horrified with the idea of being quartered and devoured by dogs and vultures, amidst the delirious howls and the roar of fireworks, celebrating the carnival of my death. When the cataclysm? When the cataclysm had passed. Oh, that's it. So that was one sentence from this beautiful piece of work. It's actually really interesting, but as you can see, these sentences are so long. It's like a classic made of run-on sentences. Who told you you can't make run-on sentences and make a good essay? Okay, well, that's it. Yep, so like 8 minutes spent reading that one sentence. It was fabulous. I learned a lot. Okay, bye YouTube.